Hi everyone, welcome back to the Capacity channel. As you can see, it's Rika and I today, and our topic of conversation today is going to be getting things done, aka GTD. This is a system that we have both come to this year, and it's been quite life-changing, and we're just going to talk about some of our personal experience with it. If you want to know how to set getting things done up in Capacities, I did a video about that. This is very much just personal experience and some thoughts. So we're going to get started. And I'm going to take us back to the last offsite we had in Freiburg in March. And Rika and I sat together and had quite an intense afternoon. But I think that was really the start for Rika, and it was really fun for me as well. So Rika, tell us about this.
Right, well, I will preface also to say that it wasn't just an afternoon, but it was like a multi-day process
That's true.
wherein I feel like you revolutionized my life for the better. So, yeah, I don't know. I think I was feeling really like overwhelmed, as you know, with work. We're a small company, there's always a ton of stuff going on, and it's very easy to feel a little bit frazzled. And I'm a self-proclaimed very organized person. I think anyone who knows me IRL, like you know, I love my routines, my systems, my notebooks, my notes, all of that stuff. And I guess I hadn't realized how much I was letting things pile up and like a lack of an actual solid foundation of a clear system was building in the background. I was just, I guess, feeling like the symptoms of it. Like I was feeling really foggy, really unsure about what to do, easily overwhelmed, scattered. I just felt like every day I was kind of figuring out what I needed to do, and then I didn't know what I would do the next day. I was just kind of going one day at a time, and it was getting really bad. But I didn't notice how bad until you and I actually sat down, and you were like, just brain dump everything in your brain. So I opened a blank like page in Capacities, and I think we sat there maybe for 45 minutes while I was like, I need to do this, I need to do this. And it was work stuff, but personal stuff as well. And I think even you said that like you were surprised by how much I was just keeping in my head, which as we know is rule number one of like what you shouldn't do. And I was doing it.
Yeah.
So
Because
yeah,
at that point, I'd done like this for myself. I'd done it for my mum. I'd done it for my boyfriend. And it was so fascinating to see the outcome of everyone's like initial, like taking everything out of your mind. And I still to this day, you are the person with the most actions across the most areas of your life. Like no one's come
no
close.
way.
Yeah. And it was really fascinating because like I feel like at the end of that you felt like good for having got it out of your mind, but also super overwhelmed because it was not a small list.
Yeah, yeah, especially because then we didn't finish. Like
Yeah, we
we
had to go
like
out.
had this huge list, and then we were like, oh, but now we need to go have dinner.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. That's actually really surprising to me that I was the one with the most.
Yeah. And like
Uh,
a lot of personal stuff as well. But I think it just, you get comfortable with your own systems, whether they're like good or not. Like, you know, the things were getting done, therefore, why not keep them in your head? But I think now you know what it could feel like, and I do too. It's not like I've got this like elder
yeah,
wisdom. Like I only came to this a little bit before you, but the difference in mindset and also how that lets you go through the world has felt like a massive change, and like you feel more confident, right, as a result of what we did after the mind dump section.
yeah, 100%. Like it's fully like I think I've texted you about this multiple times that now I just feel so much more clarity and like genuine peace. I actually feel like I'm moving ahead with all of my projects and I know the next steps I'm going to take. Spoiler about next actions, but I like know everything that's going on, and any given day I can just open my capacities like tasks and I have like absolute clarity on like what's happening today, what's happening tomorrow, what's hold if I need someone for something. And yeah, it's actually genuinely been life changing and also very humbling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is humbling and it's difficult sometimes because I think when you orient yourself to the next actions at all times, at least for me, it's shown that I was approaching things completely differently. Like at Capacities in general, we don't have a lot of open projects at one time. We try and keep loops like closed where we can. And for me, that sometimes made me think, right, okay, I need to be focusing on this next release. Everything I need to do needs to be the release. But sometimes there's something you can't do because you're waiting for someone. And for me, I would then sort of have this vacuum where it's like, okay, well, I'm meant to be doing the release, so I don't know what to do next. But getting things done kind of removes that, because you're not thinking project by project, you're thinking, what can I actually do? And I found like the compounding benefits of just lots of small and very obviously specific next actions across like all aspects of work and personal has been really good. And it, for me, it's definitely also felt less like I'm drowning at any point, because at least everything's moving in some way.
100%.
Have you had the same sort of
Yes, 100%. And I really like what you said about that kind of blank space or that void when you feel like you're waiting on other people or you feel blocked to progress. Because obviously I've had the same thing. And having this whole GTD system set up, it feels like I have a menu of like different tasks that I could do, and all of them have a next step, like a little, like a small concrete next step that I can take. And it feels like I can look at my task menu and like pick what I feel like doing based on whatever circumstance or like factors go into that. Whereas like if that's a deadline or my energy level, because we customized mine to my energy, which is so great.
Oh yes. Well,
Yeah.
'cause it wasn't just the initial like brain dump thing that we did, was it? Like we sat and we worked out like what queries you needed and what sections you'd need. And didn't we also pin the different sections to your sidebar in a particular order?
Yes.
Okay,
It
remind me
was
what we did.
okay, so the first day we did like that whole brain dump where I got truly humbled and I think you were shocked. So that was great. And then it was a couple of days because obviously we were on our offsite and we were really busy. But then when we had maybe like a free hour, we sat down and yeah, we did exactly that. So we created a bunch of pinned, like we made a bunch of queries for each different, I guess, like area of task. Area is the wrong word, but like category of task.
Statuses.
Yeah, like statuses and various like groupings for how I wanted to see my tasks. We created queries, then we pinned those, and then we figured out the way that I wanted to process my tasks, and then we pinned those queries in like process order in my sidebar under a little GTD section. And so that lives at the very top of my sidebar, and I just go through that, and it was like, so beautiful. And yeah, we did the energy tags, which was really
Yes.
great. I don't know if you have that.
I
Um,
don't. I
but
have
it was,
downstairs, upstairs, like where am I? To benefit from that momentum.
I love that. Yeah, no, so I think it's also just like so customizable to I guess like what you need and the way that you best work.
Absolutely.
Because I know that my energy like peaks and drops during the day. And so like depending on where I'm at, I know that like, okay, this is a really high energy task, so I can do it maybe first thing in the morning and then in the afternoon, I'm ready to do more like admin, low energy, low brain power type. And so categorizing them in that way is really helpful.
Didn't you also add tags for like where you need to be, like the things, the errands you got to do in town?
Yes, so that's also so useful. Um,
Rated.
I can't remember if it was a tag or it was a tag, yeah. It's a tag for like the context of the task. So not necessarily in capacities context, because obviously it's contextualized task management, but like literally in my life context, like do I need my phone for this? Am I on my laptop? Am I in town? Am I at like my parents' house? Am I wherever? And then based on that context, I have like pinned categories. So last time I was in town, I did all my errands. And I think I also texted you after that, like I got stamps, I got vitamins, I returned something at the post office.
Yeah.
I like it was excellent. And I was
Yeah.
just like ticking things off. It
Tit,
was
tit, tit.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of recently did the same. And it's also really nice for like thinking about things together. Like when your mind switches into that, okay, I'm going into town. What do I need to do? Like, what else is there? Or I'll think about this. Like, it's not just a system for dealing with the stuff that's already in your head, but kind of the more quiet things that haven't like actually taken root yet. You can just kind of capture them and do them before it's become something for you to worry about, which is again really good feeling. And as you've said, this is stuff for work but also for personal, and I think the collective feeling that comes with progression in a way that's aligned to your life, like I've certainly never had that in my adult life, like across the board,
Yeah.
and I'm really grateful to have it now. But part of me thinks, what would university have been like if I had this then?
I know, right? I think
Yeah.
that as well. I feel like I would be much not further, but I think well maybe further in like a lot of my personal goals or various things, like developments, if I had these systems, because I always know what I want to do. Like it's not a lack of wanting, but it's a lack of clarity on how to get there.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's a good point actually, because what I think getting things done does is it basically makes everything speak the language of projects and next actions. And I've mentioned this before, but the there's a point in one of the books where David Allen talks about projects, problems being projects, and that was such a huge like shift for me because it like for me I have a lot of problems and it makes me stressed. And instead of like getting carried away with the stress, it's like no, okay, this is a project. Solving it is a project. What does this problem look like when it is solved, and what are the individual steps to get there? And I have put that into practice a lot, like especially in the last few weeks because we've got like a lot going on with the house and it's really stressful. And this makes it like a lot less stressful because it's simply like, okay, what's the next action? And I found personally that stopped me like getting carried away with being worried about something. And with capacities as well, I gave my task statuses a blocked status in red. And red scares me normally, but normally like when I look through my projects that I have open, if I'm seeing blocked, it's like safe to stop thinking about it because until I then come back to it in the next review, there is nothing that I can do. And that's like another weight lifted off and I can think about other things.
That's really genius. I'm gonna copy you on that one. Thank you.
That's your next action.
I'm gonna do that.
Yeah.
No, that's really interesting. And so, would you also say that you feel like GTD and like this mentality has also translated off, like away from the system into the way that you think about things in real life and the way that you approach problems? Because that's kind of what you're saying, right?
Yeah, fully. Like I feel like a different person and it's really nice because it fits so easily into capacities, which is so much where so much of my like being a person is. Like if I'm doing my weekly reflection at the end of the week and I think of an action, I just capture it and then it becomes part of something and I do it. Like it makes me a lot more aligned with the goals that I have, which is taking action and without adding any stress. And I think generally having like a more calm inner world has made going through the world like much easier because I've been a chaotic gal for many years and it's quite nice to feel that calming down a little bit. And it's crazy because all you have to do is capture your next actions, sort of roll them up into projects and then review. Like when you strip it down to the simple things, like that's I think what I find so comforting. I don't have to do like crazy mental gymnastics to make it work. I just have to open capacities and I'm there anyway.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
It's really nice to hear.
We should probably talk about our fun weekly review club that we've had going.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed that. Introduce us to this.
me too. Okay, well, I also just want to say, like, I'm so lucky to have you to like help me with this stuff. Like, I'm really sad for everyone that doesn't have a Beth in their life. You can genuinely, you can like go and like, obviously our friendship extends beyond like work and GTD, but like this stuff as well has been so great. So what we've done now is that on a Friday afternoon, we usually like FaceTime after work, and then so we'll wrap up our work day with our Friday weekly review that Beth leads us through as GTD captain.
We're getting better at it though. Didn't you do the last one?
I did. It was really great. And I have a recurring task with all the steps. So in case of emergency, I'm able to do it myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we just go through, we do a weekly review, and it's genuinely changed my life. Like to have, no, genuinely, like to be able to, at the end of a work week, because obviously we work for a small company, it's a startup, there's so much stuff going on all the time, like the work never ends. But I am able to now on a Friday afternoon, like bookend my week. And I can say like I've done everything, I've reviewed everything, everything that I didn't get to do is waiting for me in my daily note on Monday. So I don't even have to think about it over the weekend. Like I know exactly what I've done, I know what I have to do next, and I can close my laptop and like walk away. And that clarity and like peace of mind is such a gift.
That reminds me of a bold point here, but possibly my favorite quote in the book, which was that when you hand over your work before you go on holiday, you have like checked everything and you're making your handover like legible to somebody else. So you're making the thinking clear. You're only showing them what they need to think about and nothing else. And then the feeling that you get when you've like closed your laptop for the last day before you go on your week holiday, there's a quote that's something like, why can't you have that every week? And I was like, yeah, why can't I have that every week? Because it's just a case of reviewing things. So when we do it, we look at every project, right? And we look at every task. And the thing with the projects that we're looking for is, does it have a next action? And that next action needs to be specific. Like sometimes when you're just capturing a task, it can be like, oh, research this. But that's not how you can get started. Like, what is the actual next thing? We spend some time thinking about that. And then also we often move things to like blocked. For example, if no one has time to work on something, it's blocked for a bit, we'll come back to it. And we always say, like, is it actually blocked? Okay, what is the actual next action? And we do this on the project and the task level. And it never feels like too much, does it? Because it sounds crazy, like go through all your projects, all your tasks, but it's not that hard. And constantly having these touch points is really good, because I personally feel like things aren't slipping through the cracks. Like, I'm more confident as well. And I think that also leads me to being more relaxed at the weekend and being fresher on Monday, because we've got that balance better.
No, genuinely, 100%. 100%. And I think the initial like setup is the thing that takes a lot of time, like the initial jump. But once you have that, and then you have these weekly or daily, or what, because obviously we both look at our tasks every day, so we have some sort of touch point and then a review at the end of the week. It's easy, it just like keeps going. And it's really helpful to do it with you and to like have accountability, because I like one of the times that I did it myself, I tried to just be like, like,
Yeah.
or like that's blocked, or like I'm waiting on, and then I could like hear your voice in the back of my head being like, is that actually blocked? Like, are you actually
Yeah.
not able to do that? It was, and the answer was like, no, I could do these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's really nice to have that accountability. Um, yeah, it's just such a good like ritual.
Good word. Yeah.
Thank you.
No, I agree. And it's repeatable, which is the thing. And I think it's never a bad thing to find 10, 15 minutes for yourself and think things through in that way, because we do that for like 15 minutes on a Friday, and then on Monday and like the rest of the week, you're either like, you work from your calendar, don't you? I more work out of like my next action list, or like a specific project until there are no next actions, and I move and find something else. But again, with Capacities, it kind of all works. I also made a week object in Capacities, and found a nice way to use a variable query. So I essentially say all of the projects that I want to work on, and then I also pull together any tasks that are due that week. And then I have just one Kanban board that combines them all. So I can specifically work out of the next action list on that Kanban board. And, you know, if it's empty, I've got the rest of the context around me and I can find something else. And I've found that really helpful. I should have showed that one day.
Yeah, can you show me that after this?
Yeah.
That sounds great. I too would like to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. It's cool to see it evolve as well.
Yes. And it's also, I think, really cool to see that this system, like the framework of this system, we've both implemented it, but we approach it in different ways that like is personalized to how we
Yeah.
best work. And I
Yeah.
think that's really cool. And also a really cool byproduct of having it in Capacities, which is where we spend all of our time anyway.
Yeah, exactly. There was a fun moment yesterday. I have a recurring task in Capacities to help my boyfriend Joe with his weekly review, and he'd been super busy, so I hadn't really like talked to him about it. So yesterday I was like, right, it's what was it yesterday? Wednesday. We still haven't done last week's review. Sit down, and he just went through it by himself, and I was kind of like listening in, and he was like narrating his process, and he was like, okay, first I'll go through my unreviewed meetings. Are there any actions I haven't found? I will create my tasks. Now I will go and have a look at my projects. Do I have next actions? And I was like, wow, like he's picked it up. And I think, like, I guess you've said this as well, we helped each other a lot at the beginning, because obviously working it through with you also helped me work through it in my own personal space. But then you can do it individually. And at that point, when you've picked it up enough times, you've seen how beneficial it is to do, even by yourself. So carry it on. And I think we got there with Joe yesterday, so that was really fun.
That's such a huge win for you.
Like, yeah, I'm quite smug about
Like,
it. I won't lie.
that's so, I'm really jealous because like we both have quite stressed out, chronically overworked boyfriends. So I am like, Joe is like star pupil. Joe's on my vision board. I'm manifesting Joe energy from my boyfriend.
You need to let them know.
No, genuinely, I'm going to tell him because I told him I was like, we're going to do the whole audit. But I think it feels really overwhelming for people who aren't in this, like obviously I was really excited because I love being organized and I knew that I needed help. Um, and I guess I am more systems inclined than than maybe the average person. But for Sip, my boyfriend, it's like he's so stressed. He doesn't have time to think about anything, and thinking about it stresses him out. So it's like, why would he think about it, in his free time? And the thought of doing like a brain dump for him is so stressful because he told me, he was like, but there's going to be so much.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, but all of that stuff is just in your brain, like
Yeah.
your poor brain. So
There's also a really good quote in, I think, the second book, Making It All Work. That was something like, you, not everything is important, but because it's all in your brain, you think it's all equally important. And it's when you get it out there and you process it that you realize that actually it's not. Like, I don't know, buying a new suitcase, that's something that you need to do, but you might also have like a major work deadline. It's still in your head, like there's no hierarchy in there. And I have like a lot of little things floating around, and I find that the system helps kind of neutralize it in a way. And it's like, it will come when it's time. But one piece of advice that I guess you lived through, but also might be applicable for SIP, is try and shorten the amount of time between the initial brain dump and like the next steps. We had a very nice dinner to go to the day that we started doing it. I had a great night, but I think you said like, there's so much on that list, like, and we needed to like do something with it. So maybe don't go for dinner in the meantime, and hopefully that will keep the overwhelm like kind of localized, and then show that we're literally doing the system in practice, right? Like, action. What do you really need to think about now, and what can we put away for now?
yeah, no, you're so right. I think that's a really good point, and I really like what you said about how in your brain it's all the same level of urgence. Because obviously your brain wouldn't know that. So that makes a lot of sense. Very wise.
There's some brilliant quotes in there. Like,
Yeah.
I kind of, I've heard about getting things done forever. Like, the book's been out most of our lifetimes,
Yeah.
but I thought it was something that you literally needed a physical like in tray for, and like I've never in my life had one of those. Like, I wasn't sure how it was applicable to me, but the system is so basic, like capture, clarify, organize, and then ultimately do it and then review. Like, we capture things all the time, like, books we want to read and highlights and stuff, and then we're used to processing it, and it's just really bringing those skills we already use in note taking in general to the more like action oriented side, which now lives perfectly well in capacities where everything else does, because we have tasks. And like, that was huge.
So, do you want to talk a little bit about how you came about GTD and then how you realized that it like fits really well within capacities? Because obviously we have task management now. That's exciting. But also, you've worked quite closely with Stefan to make sure that it is like perfect for implementing GTD. So, do you want to
Yeah,
talk about that?
good question, because I can't remember the like exact spark. I think it was probably just from like browsing Reddit and stuff. There's some absolute gems that I find in there, and I think I saw one that was saying something like getting things done isn't like a task management system, it's like a decision making system or something like that. And that really intrigued me as a concept, because it took task management away from it, and it kind of made it a bigger thing. So I started doing some more research, and at some point decided I should read the books. And then like context is a big part of getting things done. Like, where do you have to be to get something done? Can you even think about it right now? I guess that's the decision you're recording when you decide if it's next up or if it's not. And that really intrigued me. And I started reading the books, and I was highlighting away on that Kindle. And I thought, I feel like there's some interesting things here. And there's also a quote in one book that says something like, one day there may be a system where you can link your tasks to all their different like wider contexts. And I thought, yeah, I use the app, I work for the app, let me tell you about backlinking. And after that, I kind of just opened this thread for me where I was like, no, this is seriously like aligned. And maybe that's why it was so easy for me to read, because it was like I could immediately imagine doing it in capacities. And then I was doing it in capacities, because I was using Todoist for a while, even when capacities tasks were out, because I'd really got into recurring tasks, and we didn't have them until recently. But having recurring tasks, when did we launch them? Like last month or something like that. I sort of completely deprecated Todoist and had everything in Capacities. And I think for me, that's when it was really super powered, because it was literally the system in the app that works like my brain does. And the system works. So altogether, it's just like this engine of like good vibes and good fun. And I think I shared at the offsite that I think there could be some good connections between getting things done in Capacities, and I guess we've been testing that in real life ever since. And then, yeah, just filmed a video about it.
I love that. I think it's so fun also that it was like an organic thing that you came across. It wasn't like we ever set out to build the perfect GTD system. Is that we built a task management system on
Yeah.
top of foundational infrastructure that makes
Yeah.
up capacities, and it happens to really perfectly align with this existing framework.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really cool also that you like found that connection and you brought it, and it does just work. I also think another thing that's interesting is that in capacities, like at capacities, we talk a lot about how it feels to use capacities and like to have these systems. We talk a lot about like capacities, the feeling, because that's really important to us, like capture that and to help people feel like what we feel when like you and I take notes and we're like on another plane of like good vibes and like flow state. And I feel like GTD also helps you like feel this sense of like clarity and purpose and maybe self-assuredness and excitement. And so like even like on a vibes level, it's very aligned.
Absolutely. Yeah, the feeling is a very good point. And the fact that it all lives together, like, I can take action for the projects for work, and then after work can go read a non-fiction book and think, hey, I'm going to book a trip to see this museum, which I literally just did. Like, all of that is like in Capacities and the place that we're working in, and that just feels good, because it also means that like the friction of living life is much lower. And I think that's a net positive, right? There's just so much going on in the modern world all the time, and it really puts you in the driving seat. Like, there's a lot in the book about the axes of control and perspective, and I feel like Capacities can hold both. And that's probably why it feels like it's going to work like long term.
That was actually such a like mind-blowing sentence that you just said.
You need to read the books. It's not from me, it's all David Allen.
Oh my God, I do need to read the books. No, that's crazy. The axes of control and perspective, that just kind of blew my mind.
Okay, you need to read the second book, then Making It All Work. I read both before, like, thinking about it with Capacities more specifically. And, like, the Getting Things Done one is very much like the mechanics of it. But a lot of it is, like, quite old advice. Like, the book was, I think, last updated in 2015. So he's talking about, like, reference files and folders, and, we don't do that here. So it was, like, having to think differently as you're reading it. But then the second book, Making It All Work, is much more about like the why behind it. And I think for people like us who already like systems and already have, processes in place across lots of, areas of life, I personally found that one really interesting. I really enjoyed the depth that it went into. So I'd recommend those.
Okay, I'm actually going to make a next action in a minute to remind myself. Look at me go.
Yeah.
Remind myself to get that book. That sounds excellent. That sounds so
Yeah.
good. So what would you say to someone who like feels very inspired by this or who wants to have this level of like clarity and peace and purpose and they love using capacities? What would you like, is there any advice you would give or any mindset, perspective, starting points, anything like that?
Good question. The first starting point I would suggest is actually a question, and that is, are you willing to give, I don't know, 15 minutes a week to the weekly review? Maybe even longer. It depends what your life is like. But for me, it hasn't just been like, and this is true for all the people I've done Getting Things Done with, including myself. It isn't just the benefit of like getting things out of your mind that one day. It's then transitioning into a system that you can keep on top of, and that means the commitment to engaging with your world. I think that's a quote from the books as well. And I think at minimum you need 15 minutes where you can say, I'm going to go through these particular things. Because if you're willing to give that time, then thanks to some of the improvements Stefan and I put into the app, you can create these next action lists and open project lists with like 2 clicks. And that will make it a bit easier to keep on top of. But if you're willing to put the effort in, excellent. That's step one. Step two is getting everything out of your head. There's a trigger list on the Getting Things Done website, which we can link somewhere, which I used with you when we were sat together. And it's just like, you know, you say these things and you think, what's on my mind about this? It's a 2-sided A4 page. It's overwhelming, but that could all be in your head. That's step two, is getting it all out of your head. And then you got to start switching into projects and next actions. Like David Allen has a very simple concept of a project. Is it going to take more than one step to complete? If so, you're going to have to keep some form of open loop for it in your head, except you don't. You can give it to a system. Highlight those things that are one-offs. They go on your next action list. And there are things that need projects. We've got project object. Put your tasks in there. And then you've got a list of projects, a list of tasks, and you have to slowly decide which ones are next actions, which are blocked, when you want to do them. That's when the video can come in. But as long as you're like willing to give time, I think that's the main thing, the main realization to make.
That's really interesting. And also now I don't know if Cyprian is gonna want to do that, but we'll see. I'll let you know. I'll sit down with him.
It's hard because I think, you know, Getting Things Done has been around far longer than the few months we've been doing it. And sometimes I see Reddit threads of people who say they've been doing it for like 20 years. And I'm like, what? That's crazy. But it shows that it works. And I think you just need, like, we need to figure out like how to help people get that moment of clarity sooner, because then you're bought into like continuing it. So don't have the answer yet, but maybe at some point we'll figure that out and then everyone will want to do it.
Yes, 100%. And I think one thing that I learned from like us sitting down, and it's kind of reflected back in what you just said, but a lot of the things that I was writing down as tasks, you kept being like, that's actually a project.
True.
And I was like, no, it's not. And you're like, how many steps is there? And I was like, and that was really humbling and really clarifying, because no wonder I felt like I was incapable of moving on, like progressing with my like insanely large to-do list. Like, for example, using an example from my job, if I'm going to set up a campaign, like a marketing campaign, I would have make X marketing campaign as a task on my list. But actually, that's like quite a big project that has multiple steps in it.
Yeah.
And the mindset shift of like breaking it down to the smallest possible next action, huge. And so I love that you kept calling me out on that.
Are you sure that's blocked?
Yeah.
What is the actual next action?
It's actually what I hear in my head all the time.
I should make a playlist. Like, it's not like hypnotherapy, it's worse. It's like, this is not blocked, try again.
It's the Beth soundboard.
Yeah.
So, are you sure? Are you sure?
That's so fun. That's your next Christmas present.
Thank you. I just like a little button that I click.
One of those like deck things. Yeah.
Time for
No,
your review.
it's a different way of thinking though, and it's not like a switch, right? But again, quoting from the book, it's a commitment to engaging with your world. And if you're committed to just showing up and seeing what comes out of it, like the system's going to change. You know, we might add more features that make doing GTD and capacities even easier, and then you can adapt from there. But you've just got to show up, and then it feels good to show up for yourself, and again, orient to very specific actions, because then you can do them. And then at the end of the week, it's like, hey, I did things this week, and that feels really nice.
It feels so good. And I love that quote, a commitment to engaging with your world, because I think you and I, and I'm sure a lot of other people like listening or watching, like we are so into, like a lot of our systems are about just engaging with the world. Like we take notes.
Yep.
A huge part of that is to like better engage with the world around us, to get a better understanding of who we are as people, like the things we care about, why we care about them. It's all about engagement. I love that this like fits so beautifully in to all of that. Like that's just so delightful. So
Again, if only we read this many, many years ago. But we have it now, and we have to be grateful for that.
we do. And as like two certified David Allen fangirls, it's been really great. And I really hope that other people can like get the same benefit, with or without their Beth soundboard,
Stop.
as I have had.
That's so funny. Yeah.
But yeah,
We'll write something up. I'll write down some of my most asked questions to you. Like, because tomorrow's Friday. So maybe when we do our review, I can write down what I've said and we can add some like resources to this video or something.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, we
Yeah.
should. Because I think also it's just so. So I guess my final question to you is obviously, as we've said, like you and I are more systems inclined. Like systems thinking is a huge part of who we are as people and the way we move through the world. But we firmly believe that capacities as a system and GTD included in that can help literally everyone.
That's my
How how would you like to someone who isn't so systems inclined, who does feel a little bit overwhelmed, who feels this need or like this pull to implement these things, to start thinking differently, to engage with their world, how would you suggest that they start, I guess, just with the brain dump and then see?
I think so. I would be very tempted to share the quote about how you feel before you go on holiday and say, do you want that? Like more often? Because
Yeah.
if so, invest X minutes per week and write down the core things. Because some people might not have even developed the habit of capturing. And there's probably layers to it, like what you can do to get like started with it. I think often like going all or nothing is really difficult, especially like when you're sat at home by yourself, you're not sure where to start. But I would say understanding that it needs some time investment and understanding that really, I guess, there's just two core skills, and that's capturing and processing. There's kind of a roadmap that you can develop for doing that, and you'll probably start to feel the benefits quite quickly. Like I presume that's where we started, right? We started capturing interesting thoughts years ago, expanding on them in a note-taking app, and then here we are working for a note-taking app several years later. Like
Yeah.
you just get used to practicing that skill and then seeing where it can take you. And I guess one of these ways is like, a more systems-oriented life that also orients you to action, which feels good across all different areas of your life.
That
Does
was
that make
really
sense?
beautifully. That was really beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
You're
I'm
so
very
welcome.
complimentary today. Thank you very much.
Anytime.
That's fun. Well, we will stop yapping here. Our
Yeah.
next actions will be about creating resources that can go in the description of this video, so check them out if you haven't already. If you have any questions or thoughts about getting things done with or without capacities, please share. We'd love to hear them. And yeah, let us know if you want us to talk about anything else or share anything specific that we've mentioned. We could definitely do something there. So yeah, just let us know.
But yeah, we're certified yappers, so Beth and I do not stop talking. So I think, yeah, there's
That's
a
why
lot
we
of ground
schedule
we
a
could.
FaceTime in. Otherwise, we're just yapping all week.
I know there's a lot of ground we could cover.
Yeah,
So
that's so funny. Okay, well, thank you very much for watching,
yeah, thank you.
and we'll see you in another video.